The year is 1985. The place is Taipei, Taiwan. The air is hot, humid, and heavy with uncertainty. Taiwan, at this moment in history, is not a technological powerhouse. It is not a symbol of innovation or cutting-edge engineering. It is known for cheap plastic toys, imitation textiles, and labor-intensive assembly work done for foreign brands. The island survives by copying, assembling, and exporting, not by inventing. Motorcycles buzz endlessly through narrow streets. Neon signs flicker. The economy is growing, but it is fragile, easily replaceable, and painfully dependent on foreign demand. Yet inside government buildings, behind thick doors and cooled by humming air conditioners, something very different is happening. Quiet meetings, tense discussions, decisions that will not make headlines, but will shape the future of the global economy. At one end of a long conference table sits Li Quoting, the architect of Taiwan's economic transformation. A man who understands something many politicians don't. Cheap labor is not a strategy. It is a phase. At the other end sits a 54-year-old man with graying hair, sharp eyes, and a pipe that seems permanently attached to his hand. His name is Morris Chang. At this moment, Morris Chang believes his best years are behind him. He has spent a quarter of a century in the United States, climbing to the very top of Texas Instruments, one of the most powerful semiconductor companies in the world. Inside the company, many believed he was destined to become CEO. But corporate politics are ruthless. Power shifts. Alliances change. And suddenly, Chang finds himself pushed aside. In Silicon Valley terms, he was a general who had won countless battles, only to be quietly retired before the war was over. When Taiwan's government approaches him with an offer to lead a small semiconductor initiative inside the Industrial Technology Research Institute, most observers interpret it as a polite exile, a prestigious way to end a career. But Morris Chang does not see it that way, because in his mind, an idea has been forming for years. An idea so radical that, at the time, it borders on madness. To understand why, we need to look at how the semiconductor industry worked in the mid-1980s. Back then, the rules were clear and unquestioned. The industry was dominated by massive corporations known as integrated device manufacturers, Intel, Motorola, NEC, Toshiba. These companies controlled everything. They designed the chips, they built the factories, and they manufactured, tested, packaged, and sold the final products. This was vertical integration taken to its extreme. And it made sense. Building a chip factory, known as a fabrication plant or fab, cost hundreds of millions of dollars even in the 1980s. Today, that number would be laughably small, but back then it was an almost insurmountable barrier. Trying to design chips without owning a factory was considered impossible, like opening a bakery without an oven, like running an airline without planes. No one questioned this logic, except Morris Chang. Sitting across from Minister Li, Chang takes a slow draw from his pipe and calmly lays out his proposal. "We will build a company that does only one thing," he says. "We will manufacture chips, and nothing else. No design department, no consumer products, no brand competing on store shelves. Just manufacturing. Perfect, obsessive, uncompromising manufacturing. For anyone who needs it." Today, we call this the pure play foundry model. In 1985, it sounded like economic suicide. There were no fabless chip designers yet. No guaranteed customers. No proof the model could work. But Chang believed the future demanded specialization. Designing advanced chips required creativity, speed, and risk-taking. Manufacturing them required discipline, patience, and atomic-level precision. Trying to do both, he believed, would eventually break even the strongest companies. Taiwan's government understood how dangerous this gamble was. But they also understood something else. Taiwan could never win by playing the same game as the United States or Japan. Its only chance was to change the rules entirely. The government agreed to fund half the project. But money alone was not enough. They needed technology. They needed legitimacy. They needed a Western partner the world would trust. Chang knocked on doors. Intel said no. Motorola showed no interest. Japanese firms openly laughed. How will you survive without your own products? They asked. Eventually, one company said yes, Philips, the Dutch electronics giant. In exchange for 27.5% ownership, Philips provided capital, older production technologies, and critically, patents. It was a risk for Philips, but for Taiwan, it was lifeline. On February 21, 1987, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, was officially founded. The early reality was far from glamorous. The first factory wasn't new. It was rented. The tools were outdated. While Intel was racing ahead with the latest processes, TSMC was producing chips that others had already moved past. Its first customers weren't industry titans. They were small, obscure startups, companies too insignificant for the giants to care about. And this is where Morris Chang revealed his true genius. Large chip makers accepted small external orders only when they had spare capacity. The moment their own business picked up, those small customers were discarded without hesitation. Chang offered something no one else would, a promise. "I will never compete with you," he told them. "I will never design my own chips. And I will never abandon you when business gets good." This promise became TSMC's moral foundation. We do not compete with our customers. Trust, not scale, not speed, became its most powerful weapon. By the early 1990s, the personal computer revolution was accelerating. A new breed of companies appeared. They didn't own factories. They didn't want to. They wanted to design. Names like NVIDIA, Qualcomm, and Broadcom began to emerge. Small at first, but dangerously brilliant. They had ideas powerful enough to change the world. They had no money to build fabs. And they all went to the same place. TSMC became the backbone of the fabless revolution. Without it, many of today's tech giants would never have survived. Morris Chang had done something extraordinary. He didn't just build a company. He lowered the barrier to innovation for the entire world. Then, in 1996, reality intruded. China launched missile tests near Taiwan. Markets panicked. Investors asked the unthinkable question, what happens if Taiwan disappears? And for the first time, the world realized the answer. If Taiwan's chip factories stop, the global electronics industry collapses. TSMC was no longer just an economic asset. It was a strategic one, a silicon shield. Years later, during the 2009 financial crisis, that shield was tested again. TSMC's stock plunged. Orders slowed. Uncertainty returned. Morris Chang, now 78 years old and retired, watched in silence until he could no longer. He returned. Executives wanted to cut spending, slow investment, and wait out the storm. Chang did the opposite. He poured billions into next-generation manufacturing. Because, he said, when the storm ends, someone must be ready. He was. When smartphones exploded into every pocket on Earth, TSMC stood alone, prepared, capable, and years ahead. From that point on, the world's dependence was sealed. And everything that followed, Apple, AI, geopolitics, and a new Cold War fought in nanometers, flowed from that single decision made decades earlier in a humid room in Taipei.